Hello, America. This is Mr. Citizen Patriot. I finally have made it here to Washington, D.C. I've been around for 17 years, born in Los Angeles in 2003. My role is to bring patriotism to a higher level in our country. My role is to wear this uniform for the sake of the men and women who wore their uniforms to be shot at, that I may be free. I didn't go to be shot at, but the least that I can do for those men and women who gave their lives for me is to wear this uniform to remind the world who they are and what they've done. And I've come also to raise the spirit of patriotism in our country, to come together, whether you're on the political right or left, it doesn't matter right now. We as a nation must come together, and what better person to help bring the nation together than a person like Mr. Citizen Patriot. And for more information on Mr. Patriot and how to get in touch with me and participate in this new awakening of American patriotism, go to mrpatriot.us. Get involved with this new American patriotism that we're bringing to you today. Hey everybody, good evening. Sorry about the late entree there. Welcome. This is Ted. Your power weapon, quote unquote, on urbansmartnetwork.com. We come to you every Monday night at 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific Coast time and 10 o'clock p.m. on the East Coast time. East Coast time. And I want you to tell all your friends out there, go on your social media, and you tell all your friends and neighbors to tune in every Monday night to Urban Smart Network's Your Power Weapon and listen to what we got to say. We have a lot of things to share with you this evening. Tonight is a very special night that we want to bring up to you. It has to do with probably what I would consider the most important American in U.S. history to Black citizens, or what I call American Africans, the descendants of chattel slaves, the people upon whose back this nation of immigrants is built. And so we're gonna talk about that a little bit tonight. But we're also going to talk about, I want to introduce you, of course, to my guest, Keith Hardeen, Emory McClendon, Anita Rhodes, and Ashley Gilliam. They're all going to be here tonight. And Ken White, of course, the unicorn, to share their views of what's going on out there in the world. So I want to welcome you all once again to Urban Smart Networks, Your Power Weapon. This is Ted, your host. Let's first of all welcome to the podcast tonight, Mr. Keith Hardeen. Keith, talk to us, brother. Tell everybody out there what it is you are dealing with, sir.
Right now I'm driving. Well, I'm not
driving.
Looks
like it.
I'm not driving, but I am definitely riding in a vehicle, and it's getting darker. So as I begin to disappear, I'll try to get into a better position later. However, it's good to be on, Ted. Thanks a lot. Once again, I'm honored to be on your show.
Well, Keith, you know, just the fact that you are in a car, of course, somebody else is driving, and she got one of them automatic driving cars. It's an honor, brother, for you to take the time wherever you're going with your busy self to come on the podcast with us and share your views. So I just want to thank you so much, because you could just say, you know what, I'm busy tonight, Ted. I can't get there. So thank you for being here, Keith. I really appreciate you, brother. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Always look forward to it.
Thank you, sir. Hey, Miss Anita, you there? Miss Anita Rhodes, what's happening? Rhodes Scholar, are you there? You and Dusty? I guess they didn't come in. Let's talk to Emory McClendon. Emory, you here, brother? How you doing tonight? Well, Emory's not here yet. Anyway, hey, Ken, a unicorn, you there? What's up, unicorn?
I think it's just you and me.
Oh my gosh, what happened to my folks? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so sorry about this. I Well, we're going to have a very interesting podcast anyway as we move forward here tonight. All right, the title, Keith and everybody, of tonight's podcast is Black Elite Women Since the End or Post the Civil War. Black elite congressional women in particular since the ending of the Civil War to free the slaves. And if you notice up there in the background, behind me, right there, is you'll see two white dudes having at each other. One in blue, one in gray. Now, the one in blue is from the Union, the Federals, and the one in gray is from the South, the Southern Confederacy. I don't know if y'all, if you're not hip to your history, it's very important that you know the roots as to who we are today. Starts back then, yesterday. Now, these two white boys in this thing that they call the Civil War. This war lasted for about 5 years. It started on April the 11th, I think it was, 1861, and it went to June 19th, 1865. And these boys killed 740,000 of each other in that war. 740,000 innocent young white boys murdered one another. Of course, 38,000 black boys and men were involved in the conflict too. But overwhelmingly, this was a white man's war. This was a white man's war with the white man. And the irony of all this, ladies and gentlemen, and I want you to really appreciate who America is. This is why I want you to appreciate who Mr. Patriot is, because this is kind of the thing, one of the things that actually moves Mr. Patriot is this understanding of what this Civil War was about. Now, historians and scholars have said, ladies and gentlemen, that if any American, the Americans who do not understand the Civil War era, really does not understand America. And that's one of the reasons why, folks, we are in the state of confusion that we are in today. But I guarantee you this, there are people in this country, in the world, like Xi Jinping and Alexander Putin and all the rogue nation leaders, Little Rocket Man, all them cats. They know about this right here. They know what America's about. And I'll tell you who else knows about it. The socialist enemies. They know about this. In fact, the socialists showed up in America in 1850 as the war was beginning to get started, and they had been watching the relationship between white people and white people over black people. You know, Abraham Lincoln said at one point, he said that America is a nation divided against itself, which he quotes that, of course, from Jesus Christ. The point is, he's right about that. America's a nation divided against itself. But most people think that that man right there, Abraham Lincoln, most people think that that means between black and white people, white and black people. That is not true, ladies and gentlemen. You see, because we were not of the household of America. Excuse me, folks. But rather, we were the property of the household of America. And the house of America was divided over the commodity of its living property, the chattel slaves that the United States inherited from the British Empire in 1776. And so the South was saying, we must hold these people as living human property to maintain our countries and our state of existence and other those states, what they call their countries, North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Texas. They were countries to these people, right? And slavery was a key commodity to them, was staple. Whereas in the North, they had industrialized and they didn't need the use of slaves. And so the North said, you know what? This is embarrassing that this union has to have chattel slaves, especially after we talk about freedom and liberty and God and all those wonderful things and the Declaration of Independence. And yet we're holding people slaves. So the North said, we got to end it. And the South said, we ain't ending this mess. So the South took off and started shooting at the Northern white boys. And we ended up with 740,000 innocent young white boys dead and millions more wounded in that conflict over black people. And most folks in this country do not realize that the white folks to this day are continued divided. This nation is continually divided over the existence of us black citizens. in this country. Oh, and one more thing. When I say innocent young white boys, what I mean by that is no people in the Civil War era, especially young white boys out there, they did not start slavery. You hear me? Them boys had nothing to do with starting and implementing slavery. And even of the Southern boys, I would say probably maybe 1 or 2% might have owned the slave. It was the rest of these people were people who had wealth and plantation owners. Them white boys in the South were fighting what they believed was in Declaration of Independence, Constitution, patriotism, as well as the boys in the North. But nonetheless, none of them, including the slave holders, the plantation owners, none of them started this mess. They were born into it. They inherited it. And lo and behold, because of the previous generation's failure, i.e. the founding fathers, to eradicate slavery when they first broke away from England, generation later, these young white boys had to pay for it with their lives, their suffering, and their families hurt. So when I hear people say, well, that was back then, it had nothing to do with me, that's not true. Because what they did yesterday has everything to do with who you are today and who you will be tomorrow, especially if you don't figure out what happened yesterday. But I want to lay this on you now. I said to you, the most important man, and I welcome debate. I welcome debate. The most important man in the history of this country, and the most important man in the history of black people, American Africans in this country, is a white man. That's right. It's a white man. You know his name? Say his name. Say his name. Abraham Lincoln. Say it again. Abraham Lincoln. One more time. Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln. Yes, sir. That man literally gave his life for us. Now, this is before Dr. King. Dr. King's a great man. Don't misunderstand me now. Malcolm X, hats off to Malcolm and all the other brothers and sisters out there who fought for civil rights. But Abraham Lincoln and the Republican Party of 1854 and 56, they instituted the civil rights movement and the civil rights laws. Abraham Lincoln began with the Emancipation Proclamation of January 1st, 1863, when he said, I'm going to free the slaves. And he changed the Civil War from being about states' rights and all that old funny business they were trying to pretend it was about initially for the first couple of years, and changed it into a war of liberation. Not just a war of liberation of the American African chattel slaves, but a war of liberation of the Union Republic of the United States. You see, what he was doing, Abraham Lincoln, he was more perfecting the Union according to the dictates of the preamble, where it says, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. You see, so he was doing his part to make that happen. And people hated him for that. And Abraham Lincoln, now today, how many of y'all know what today is? Today is April the 11th. What happened on April the 11th? Anybody know? You better know. Well, April the 11th is the date in which the Confederate leading general, Robert E. Lee, surrendered to the federal lead general, Ulysses S. Grant, at Appomattox, Virginia, at the courthouse. April the 11th, folks. April the 11th was the end, initially the end. But you know something? Abraham Lincoln went out the next night on April the 12th, and Abraham Lincoln was on the porch of the White House, and Abraham Lincoln was giving a speech. He was giving a speech to the people who had gathered to celebrate the victory of the North winning the Civil War. Well, when that happened, he said in the speech that he intends, now, the 13th Amendment had not even yet been passed. It was just a bill, okay, in 1865. And so he gets up on April 12th, he says,
wonderful things. Let's not rejoice over the death of these people who died in the war and all that. We must, reconcile and be healed. But he said, but I intend, as president, to ensure that the freed slaves will also get the right to participate in our governing body of this country where we left them out back in the Declaration of Independence 60-some years ago, 90, almost 90-some years ago. We are going to grant them the right to govern with us, to vote. Now, he was talking about the 15th Amendment. But check it out, folks. The 14th Amendment was not yet even passed. It was just in their heads. And not only that, but the 13th Amendment wasn't even passed. But there was a man in the audience that night at the White House about 20 feet away from Lincoln. The man's name was John Wilkes Booth. He was a very famous actor, if you can, of his day. Now, he was a theater actor. The guy was a household name. And if you can, picture a guy like, let's say, Brad Pitt or Johnny Depp or Leonardo DiCaprio or Will Smith. Okay? When this movie star, this theater star, heard that Lincoln was going to give voting power to the freed slaves, the Negroes, and realizing that they would have to be citizens equally with white folks, and that they would have to have a law that says that slavery is abolished, that these people could never be put back in chains again, John Wilkes Booth said, I got to kill this man. I got to kill him. Now, they had been planning, apparently the conspirators had been planning to kidnap Lincoln to negotiate a settlement for the Southern Confederacy so they can keep the Confederacy. Well, when Lincoln said, I'm not going to free these people, but I'm going to citizenize them, and I'm going to give them right to tell white folks what to do. John Wilkes Booth said, no, we ain't having that. So what John Wilkes Booth did on April the 13th, rather, when Lincoln went to the Ford Theater to watch My American Cousin, the actor equivalent to Johnny Depp, Will Smith, Ice Cube, Leonardo DiCaprio, big names. When John Wilkes Booth snuck up behind Abraham Lincoln, shot him in the head. It took Lincoln all night to die. He died the next morning, across the street at a hotel. He died on April the 14th. But you know something, ladies and gentlemen? Just like we don't remember April the 4th, the assassination of another very great American, I consider the greatest civilian American in the history of this country, Dr. Martin Luther King, Prophet MLK. Just like we forgot about his birthday or his assassination, we've also forgot about Lincoln. Not only have we forgotten about Lincoln, we've also forgotten about January 1st, when Lincoln decided with the Emancipation Proclamation, which is actually part 2 of the Civil Rights Act of part 2 of the Declaration of Independence. Abraham Lincoln set the nation on the path road to freedom, and we forget that. And by everything within me, hopefully by January 1st this coming year, I would like to see, we'll try to get January 1st becoming national recognition, not a holiday, but just a recognition day, national day. And on April the 4th, I want that day to be acknowledged as well. And I hope y'all will help me with that. So tonight, I just wanted to pay tribute to that guy right there. That guy right there. That white boy right there. That white man right there. He's literally stepped out of his skin, so to speak. Stepped into our skin. And on behalf of all American skin, this man dared to challenge the status quo, the institution that held other human beings as living human property. No matter what their skin color is, it was wrong. And this man paid for it with his life, because he not only sought to free them, but he also sought to empower them with the equal empowerment that white people have, the empowerment that we get from the 14th Amendment. So I just wanted to, Civil Rights Act of 1866 and the 14th Amendment. I just wanted to bring that to your attention tonight so that we don't forget. All right. So, hey, America, thank you for listening to that. I appreciate it. Don't forget, Abraham Lincoln, April the 13th and the 14th, Martin Luther King, April 4th. We shall never forget. Thank you. Folks, this is Ted, host of Your Power Weapon on urbansmartnetwork.com. Ken, what's up, my brother? Keith, rather, what's up, my brother? Talk to us. What's happening? How are you today? Talk to the people who've been waiting to hear what you got to say about all this. You got any comment on this last statement I made about Abraham Lincoln?
Yeah, maybe it's a good idea also to take a little time if you have it in front of you. Let's read some excerpts from those documents. Maybe just literally read it so that people can get an idea of what they say, because we're always mentioning it, but people don't know what it says.
Well, you have me in a bad spot because I don't have the documents directly in front of me at this point in time. I should have. But what I can do is tell you what I do know. And
Okay,
what I do,
go for
I'm
it.
sorry. And what I do know is in the sentence 2 of the Emancipation Proclamation that the President of the United States and all of the United States military and its naval forces now today, including our Space Force, are mandated to protect Black citizens, rather the freed slaves, in anything that they do to actualize their freedom in this country. In other words, and he mentions that twice in the Emancipation Proclamation, that whatever we as Black citizens deem as important for our actual freedom. Now, we do have freedom technically by the Civil Rights Act of 1866 and the 14th Amendment. Yes, we have that technically, but experientially, as a people, we do not, you see. However, there are people who do have it, and that is people in Congress, people who are, as the title of our show, Black women elite in Congress since the end of the Civil War, post-Civil War, who have power to help us actualize our freedom, but they have refused to do so. For example, today in the United States Congress, we have 55 individual Black folks who are there in the Congressional Black Caucus. 25 of them are women, Black women. Y'all remember the Black woman last week who couldn't define what a woman was. Well, we have 25 of those in Congress. Yet you look at the state and the fate of Black citizens in this country, American Africans. We have Black women, elite Black women in the entertainment industry. We have on television making commentary. Yet you look at the state and the fate of Black women in America. Black women lead in every negative social statistic nationally that pertains to women. Black women have the highest rate of abortion in America, yet we're only 11-12% of the national population. Black women have the highest rate of HIV virus than any other people. Black women have the highest rate of homelessness, you see. And yet we have all these beautiful Black women, proud Black women, with all their hair and nails and gowns and dress-ups and red carpet parading and celebrating, all these powerful, influential women, including supposedly Kamala Harris. Yet you look at the state of Black women today in America. And for an example, Keith and ladies and gentlemen, we talked about this last week a little bit when my friend Maxine Waters, I'm not going to speak disparagingly of Maxine Waters, Congresswoman, the Honorable Congresswoman Maxine Waters. I've learned my lesson about that. She is my elder, and she does hold high office, and so I respect her in that level. However, I do not respect most of her policies. And she showed her wealth, her power, her isolation from the rest of us when she went right there in South Central LA, her district, and she told a bunch of homeless people who was upset to go home, to go home. That's what they did, to go home. And they said, home, where's home? You see, there they are, folks. There they are. The Congressional Black Caucus. This is the most powerful political body of black people in the history of the United States of America. We have a black vice president. We have a black woman on the Supreme Court. We had a black president who's still now running things through Joe Biden. Look at all that black power. The Panthers, boy, when the Panthers hollered out, black power! Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. And what do we have in return? A bunch of elite black folks celebrating behind that white man, Abraham Lincoln, who gave his life so these people can be empowered to do what? To betray the very people that 740,000 innocent young white boys blew their brains out, killed each other, 15 sometimes 20 yards out, other times with their bare knuckles or knives, looking into each other's blue eyes, blooding up their blonde hair over you and me. And these folks you see sitting right there, they don't give a flying flip. Because they're black? No, because they're human. It's a human thing. The black thing comes in because of all the people in this country, except for the native people, the aboriginal people, of all the people in the country, we black folks cry the most about justice and injustice and power and lack of power. And if we get power, we wouldn't behave like the white man, that we would be above that kind of behavior. And look at us. So we have power, but it's not being used properly. And that's why you hear me. I'm not sorry, but I keep running on about the Civil Rights Act of 1866. Okay, I just looked at my chat. The Civil Rights Act of 1866, which is our national birth certificate and our freedom in this country. I'm going to digress now and move over here because apparently Unicorn just showed up. Hey, Unicorn, where you at, man? Unicorn. We lost him again. He was here for I had here in the chat that he was here. So Keith, you know that is one of the what Bob and I what Smoke and I gonna work out, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna start a series where we're going to put up photo pictures, and I'm going to talk about those photo pictures, about Justiceville and homelessness, right up into the Civil Rights Act of 1866, the power that we will access to resolve this in this country. That is the most powerful law that we have to do this, folks. And we're going to learn. It's what Dr. King called the promissory note. So what's up, Keith? What do you think, man?
Hey, I like that, man. It's I always like to hear when you're teaching and talking about that, especially the that clause in the Emancipation Proclamation about self-defense.
Yes, sir.
You know that by heart, sir. How does that go? Do you have it?
I'm trying to find that now, but you go ahead. I'll see if I can find it.
Well, you see, in our communities, we have at the moment, we have the highest rate of crime in history. In our major cities across the country, and it seems that in that situation, you still have the progressive politicians, those who Ted just mentioned. Many of them all side with the same idea to sort of disarm the population, to disarm the blacks in the community, starting with us, because it always affects us the most. So we are disarmed. We are not able to defend ourselves. And at the same time, they want to cut back on police. They call it police brutality. They call it that. I just call it policing. Because when they're cutting back on policing, because The people who commit crimes are the ones who are out of control, not the police. If you don't commit the crime, then most likely you would not encounter the police officer. I know that from experience because I don't have to, I don't encounter those things. I grew up in South Central LA, and I just don't encounter brutality of police, brutal police out to hunt.
Why not?
Yeah,
How did excuse me, sir?
yeah,
Um, how did you avoid that? Because the police in your day, they were all over the neighborhood in them days,
that's
and there's a
right.
lot of stuff going on. How did you avoid not having confrontation with law enforcement officers?
Well, basically, what my mother told me, she said,
Uh-oh.
listen to me. It kind of sounds like it's right out of Proverbs, too, the book of Proverbs. Hear my words, listen to my voice, listen to me, and you can avoid, you avoid the aggressor for the most part. Now, I know that we live in a world that's corrupt, violent, and sometimes you do encounter violence, but most of the time you can avoid it. Just use wisdom, be aware, obey the laws, do what you know that is right, what you're supposed to do. How many people are telling them that these days? How many people that Ted just mentioned in NAACP or any of those types of organizations where blacks are heading up, the so-called blacks who care about the communities? What are they saying about the people obeying the law, behaving themselves? That sounds like a very racist term nowadays. If you're told to behave yourself, act decent, and act like you are civilized, then that's sort of a white privilege, right? White supremacy. That's what it's accused as being, and that's what I've heard. What do you think of that?
Well, there was some our poor people. We don't stand a chance. At least we didn't. Y'all gotta remember something. We didn't come here willingly. We came here. We were brought here rather against our will, and we've never stood a chance. But we've gotten dummied down really bad to the point to where if a black kid like you and Larry Elder in the hood was seen carrying books home from school to do your homework, to study, and that you were trying to speak proper English because you knew that's what you got to have to be professional once you got out of high school, and that you had to keep your grades up if you're gonna be able to go to college and get hired. And so when you speak with clear, distinct English, they say, "Oh, you trying to be white? You trying to talk like the white man?" And of course, they get beat up or killed for trying to talk like the white man. Well, see, what unfortunately these young people don't understand is that whether they like it or not, they're in a white man's land. They ain't in Africa. Thank God they're not in Africa, though. They better thank God they're not in Africa, but they're in the white man's land where they can talk stuff and carry on. And if you're gonna make it in the white man's house, then you better learn how to speak the white man's language and know the white man's ways. That's just the way it is. If you don't like it, I'm not being funny or nothing. Really, if you don't like it, if you got the money, you should, leave America quietly and just go on to Africa somewhere where you can do what you want to do. But in the meantime, as long as you are in this white man's land and you are on this white man's Declaration of Independence and this white man's Constitution and this white man's 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment Civil Rights Act and this white man's anti-Ku Klux Klan laws, then you better learn the laws of this white man so you can defend yourself and learn to speak his language so you can get ahead in life. So that's what I think about that, Keith. What do you think about that?
I like that. That's a very good. And see, that's the first rule in self-defense is awareness of your surroundings. You got to be aware of your surroundings and also aware of when God is speaking to you. That is another principle that I definitely believe and try to exercise in my life and try to teach others, is that God speaks to us. He's constantly speaking. He's got a voice. He's on the inside of us, those who believe and those who trust in him. course, we still make mistakes. I always have to bring that up because we're not perfect. We don't always listen to that voice. Sometimes we override it with our emotions. And that, boy, I know you could speak to that. Talk about emotions.
And
But
and, and
that's the way it
go on,
is.
go on.
Yeah, so we can override that with our emotions, but for the most part, we need to learn how to listen, and that's the purpose of education. Really, is to make the people the safe guardians of their own liberty, and that's how we safeguard or defend our liberty, is by listening to the voice of God on the inside as He instructs us what to do. You see, the Scripture says He will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. He will guide you by His eye. His Spirit lives within the believer and will begin to guide us into all things, direct us, and speak to us. But we got to learn to listen. And we haven't been doing a very good job of that.
Yeah, and I agree. And we do react emotionally and out of ignorance. We're not generally, we have like an average fourth grade literacy according to educators, so what they tell me anyway. But let me read something to you. Here it is, Keith. Here it is, the Emancipation Proclamation.
All right.
Look, I like this, Smoke. I like this,
Yeah.
engineer. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this, y'all. Look at that.
Wow.
Look at that.
That is
Look at that.
awesome.
Look at that. And and you know, remember what we say about your power weapon? Where is it? In your mind. In your mind. I was listening to somebody the other day talking about how sharp and powerful the brain and the mind is if we only learn to use it. But most of us don't know we got a brain. We're not, it's like most of us don't know we got a heart until we put a hand over our heart and feel it beating. Or if something scares us, then we feel, oh, I'm beating her. Most of us don't know we got lungs. So we can't breathe no more. Most of us don't know we have intestines or kidneys or other internal organs until they're not working. So we take our brain for granted and not realize that that is the most powerful tool that God has granted to us, because with that brain, we make the mouth speak into existence the things that we want to see manifested here on the earth. As in the case of Abraham Lincoln, you said that listen to God and God will speak to you. Well, Abraham Lincoln on September the 16th or 17th, somewhere in there, he brought his cabinet together, his various federal departments, and he told them that because he had made a contract with God, that if God would allow him a victory against a battle against the Confederate Army, that he would sign the Emancipation Proclamation. Now, the Emancipation Proclamation sat on Lincoln's desk for a couple years, man, looking at him. And he did with politics. It wasn't he was racist. He just said the politics wasn't right for him. And so he says, God, the only way I'm going to get out of this is if you show your hand by giving me a military victory. And sure enough, at Antietam, when Lee tried to invade the North and the South beat them there, Lincoln realized that that was God speaking to him. So Lincoln called his group together and said, now, if y'all want to look over the Emancipation Proclamation, make any kind of editorial statements or typo statements, fine. But the content shall not change, because I made a contract with God to sign the Emancipation Proclamation, and I'm signing it right here and right now. Now, let me read to you, and then we're going to bring Ken on. I want to read to you what Lincoln said in the Emancipation Proclamation. An executive government of the United States, i.e. the president, including the military and the naval authorities thereof, will recognize and maintain the freedom of such persons, and will do no act or acts to repress such persons or any of them, check it out, in any efforts they make for their actual freedom. That's the power that we've never used. See, then down at the end, Keith, this is specifically, he directed this to you, Keith. He said, and I hereby enjoin upon the people so declared to be free to abstain from all violence, unless in necessary self-defense, I recommend to them that in all cases, when allowed, they labor faithfully for reasonable wages. You see that? Self-defense, Keith.
Yeah.
What happened to Ken? What happened to Ken? I saw him for a
Ken
minute.
was
There he
there.
is.
There he is. There he is. I don't know
What's
if
up,
he's,
Unicorn?
I don't think he's oh, he froze.
I think he
It
froze. My man. Okay,
Technology.
you go ahead.
Yeah, man. I like that part. Self-defense. So the right to self-defense, he was acknowledging that same right belonged to
Let me call you
blacks.
back. I'm on the TV. Call you back.
Is that him?
No, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So I was just saying that same right of self-defense belonged to blacks equally to whites. And this is what we need to remember. That's very important because we live in a society that's getting more and more violent. So the people, everybody's looking for a solution. They're looking to the politicians, to the state. They're looking to the government for the solution. That's not the solution.
So what
Government's,
you're saying? So are you saying in the meantime, until they get all this law enforcement stuff worked out, that every citizen, especially black citizens, because I think most of the crime that's committed in the community is black on black crime. So what you're saying that until that is taken care of, that every black citizen or every citizen needs to learn methods of various kinds of self-defense, from
yes.
the higher martial arts all the way down to what you call, what's that word you use? When you use things like pens and
Oh,
little
yes,
things,
yes. Those are
glasses.
just tactical, improvised self-defense, improvised weapons. Any everyday household weapons like a flashlight, a tactical pen, a
How
pen.
about glasses? How about glasses? Can you use
Yeah, glass,
glasses?
a hairbrush. Hey, remember those natural combs?
Those are
Remember those?
weapons, huh? Hey, you have to tell me about that. Hey, we back in the day in high school, we used them. Shit, what you talking
Yeah.
about, man?
I mean,
Nah, we didn't too.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Anyway, just down to everyday tools, everyday things that you would keep in the house or what have you. Just, you have to be trained to use it. Be prepared to use it, just like your mind. How about this? How about preparing our minds? Those weapons of our warfare that God has given us. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal. They're not controlled by the emotion. They're governed by God's law and His Spirit. They're not.
So,
Yeah. So those are the weapons that God has given us. They're not carnal, but mighty through God to the
so, so,
strongholds.
so you're saying, okay, now I think you deviate between believers in Christ and those who do not believe.
Right.
Now, would this apply the same to a non-believer in Christ as it does to a believer in Christ, or vice versa, or what?
Yeah. Certain aspects of it does. Here's where it is equal. When you look at the Declaration of Independence, what does it say in the first paragraph? To assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. All men are entitled to certain rights, inalienable rights. All men are created equal, whether you're a Christian or non-Christian, Jew, Gentile, Muslim, atheist, agnostic, gay, straight, all of those where we do fit together as human beings is that we are all created in God's image. Therefore, we, being created in God's image and likeness, we all are entitled to the same inalienable rights. That's what the
Now,
founding.
okay, all right, now, being that you bring up Christ in this, there are those who believe that Jesus said, if someone abuses you, if someone takes your cloak, give him your coat. Someone tells you to go a mile, you go 2 miles. Someone slaps you in the cheek, like the way Will Smith slapped Chris Rock the other day. He rocked his world. You're supposed to turn the other cheek. Chris should have turned the other cheek. Am I correct? Or should Chris had gone into his Keith Hardeen self-defense mode and threw the cat to the ground, or locked him up and made him and nullify his aggression?
Oh, wow. Wow. Will Smith.
But you can't stop him
Is
from.
that what you're talking about, Keith?
Yes. You don't have to kill the man for slapping you, but you can stop him from slapping you. Why do I say that? Because when Jesus said that, he said, if
he gets through,
if a man strikes you on one side of the cheek, turn to him the other. So the if means you could possibly stop him.
But wait a minute. Wait a minute. You know, now, the Lord, from what I've read and heard, he's called us to suffer injustice because unrequited suffering is redemptive. Jesus suffered on the cross.
That's right.
And he said when they was nailing him to the cross, he could have got up and whooped their butts. But he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. When they slapped him, he turned the other cheek.
Yeah. But are you familiar?
Philip, for example, Stephen, when Paul and them stoned Stephen with rocks, folks, Stephen didn't pick up the rocks and throw them back in a more martial artist style. Right. He didn't duck; he took it.
Well, let me ask you this: are you familiar with there were at least 2 times in the scriptures that I can recall, 2 times. A crowd was going to throw Jesus off a cliff.
Right.
Do you remember that?
Yes, I do, very clearly.
What did you say he did? Did he just turn the other cheek, or what? What was his?
No, I don't know, but he didn't use no weapons on him. He didn't do no martial art. He just looked at him, and they got out of his way.
There you go, right there. He turned the other cheek. He turned the other cheek and walked away. He walked away. And what did he say? What did he say if they don't receive you in one town? What do you do?
Take the dust off.
Okay.
But they don't tell you to make dust balls and rocks and throw it at them.
Right. So that's a form of
Hold on. There's Unicorn back. Unicorn, you back.
Yeah, he's back.
What's up, man? Come on.
He's trying to let you know he's there.
He's listening. Ladies and gentlemen, let me say something to everybody, man. That cat right there, Unicorn.
Yeah.
That's one decent brother right there. Okay. I met him a few months ago. And he's a hardworking man. He has a security business. He's smart. He's a survivor from Southside Chicago. He's always had an instinct for righteousness. And he's been put through some real rough trials here lately. And but he always surfaces. And see that sign right there? It says, "Black man, you are me. I am you." I would prefer that he was here to specifically talk about that video. So like about a 5-second, maybe 6-second video. Clever. And basically he's being a mirror. He's mirroring blackness back to black men. And basically he's talking, Keith, what the scripture says. You know, Jesus said, love God and your neighbor, what? As yourself. I'm not going to hurt you because I love me. I'm not going to tear you down because I love me. As long as I love me, you're safe, black man. And I think what the brother's trying to say, at least that's how he is saying it to me, that if we're going to talk all this being black, unity, black economics, black this, black that, then why are we so anti-black? Black people are the most anti-black people on the planet. That's kind of funny, but it's true. But what Keith is trying to do to black men is bring up that in a very, very kind way about the sarcasticness that black folks, don't you think we better, as Michael Jackson said, take a look in the mirror? And that's what Keith. Ken, I hope I'm reading you right. What do you think?
Is he on?
What do you think, Keith?
Well, anyway, like I was saying, I don't know if he's on. Is he on? Okay.
No.
Okay. Well, let me just say this.
I think he's on, but he can't talk. He's listening to it.
All right. Well, so the thing is, I was saying here is that people
don't be talking about it behind his back.
People have mistaken Christ. You know, for so long, all my life, I've heard Christ as as was presented as a what do you call it? A peace lover. What's the word?
The Prince of Peace.
No.
That's his name.
No, there was something.
Peacenik, hippie.
Yeah, that
He's
sort
a
of thing.
hippie.
Yeah. Peacenik, hippie, like he's
Long-haired hippie.
a pacifist.
Pacifist.
So people have regarded him as a pacifist, but
Yeah.
Jesus was no pacifist.
Yeah.
When he said, "I am not come into the world," he said, I came to bring a sword. Father against mother, mother against father. Because
But he didn't say, but he was talking about ideology sword. He wasn't talking about father,
right.
get out your gun and shoot your son if
Well,
y'all
that's
disagree.
that's
Vice
not
versa.
what I said. That's not what I said. He said, I the sword. Now, at the end of his
The sword of ideology.
yeah, at the end of his ministry, when he was about to be taken by the soldiers, Luke 22, chapter 22.
What did he say?
He said, go and buy a sword. He told his disciples to go and buy a sword. And the disciples said, here are 2 swords, Lord. So they've been carrying a sword all along.
But wait a minute.
Swords.
But wait a minute. So the night that the Lord was betrayed, and he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, trying to get out of that, when he came back out, and the guards were there, and they said, we're looking for Jesus. He said, I am he, and they fell over. Remember that? They backed up, they fell down. He knocked them down. He did use his spiritual power and physically knock them down, let them know you don't run nothing around here. I'm letting you run it. Okay? But then Peter pulls out his sword and swings it and cuts the dude's ear off. Jesus picks up the sword and slaps the ear, slaps it back on his head, and he said, Peter, put away that sword.
That's right.
Now, Mr. Keith, what about that?
Here's how I answer it. When he said put away the sword, he said put it in its place.
Oh, here we go. And the other dude's throat, right?
So the sword was not in its place until he said
back in his shield.
Yes.
And his feet, right.
Because because it was appointed unto him to go. That was the appointment. And Peter was out of order. So
wasn't Peter the same cat that when Jesus said, I'm going to go to Jerusalem and now I'm going to die. They're going to kill me in Jerusalem. Peter said, oh, no, Lord, not you. You king of the Jews. And what did Jesus say to him? Get thee behind me, Satan, for thou savorest not the things that be of God, but that be of men. Get out of my way.
Whoa, that's awesome.
Well, what do you do about this? What do you do about this, Keith? Where the Lord went into the temple?
Yes.
The weekend he was crucified.
Took a whip.
And he took a whip and he began to strike people. Is that what you said we need to do? What you saying, man? You giving us, Keith, are you giving us license to go out here and start whipping people with whips? Should we make ourselves a whip? Should I learn to use my belt as a whip?
Here's what I'm giving you a license to. I said it earlier. I'm giving you a license to listen to the voice of the Lord and see what he wants you to do when he wants you to do it.
But in the meantime, make sure you have yourself tooled up in the event he needs to use you in that fashion.
Yes.
You know what you saying, Keith?
That's right.
Are y'all buying that out there? Are y'all buying this? Are y'all buying what this cat's saying?
I love it. I love it. Be ready. Be prepared. Hey, I like George Washington. George Washington said, if we desire to avoid insult, we must be able to repel it. If we desire peace, it must be made known that we are at all times ready for war. See, when you go out there, you got to be ready, prepared for war, spiritually, mentally, physically. Why do I say all three? Because in the chapter of 1 Timothy, I think it is, Thessalonians, 1 Thessalonians 5:23, 1 Thessalonians says that Paul said, I wish that you in spirit, soul, and body be preserved blameless unto the coming of the Lord. So spirit, soul, body, be preserved blameless. Spirit.
Well, I don't know whether it's urban or rural myth, But that picture, that white man, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if y'all recognize that white man
George.
that the engineer put up there. That's hey, black people, that's your father right there.
All right.
That's your father. That's old George Washington right there. He's the first president of the United States. Now, they say, Keith, that George Washington was a spiritual man. He believed in God, he believed in Jesus, he bowed his knees. But yet, this same man used horrible military might to defeat and free this nation, so
Yes.
Christians might be free.
Yes.
So pacifists might be free, right? So hippies might be free, right? He had to shed blood to make that happen, huh?
Yeah. So we had
But
that.
listen,
We had
folks.
that Revolutionary War to
We
bring
got
us
3 minutes here. What, Keith?
We had that Revolutionary War, and throughout the Revolution, I don't know if people really know this, but the Revolution, the Revolution, the main, you know what fueled the Revolution?
What?
It was the idea that slavery was wrong. Wow. I found that out. Just through research. The founders believed that slavery was wrong.
But nonetheless, we're going to keep these niggas. These niggas making us some money. Lord, please look the other way.
But they knew that slavery
Them
was wrong.
thugs. They thugs, man.
Said it himself. Jefferson,
Hey, God bless the founding fathers.
I fear
Hey.
God. He said he feared that God would, judge as a result. This will be our downfall.
Yes, sir. Well, listen, man, let me get up out of here, y'all. Look,
Oh.
next week we're going to have Anita Rhodes, Keith. She's come back next week, and she's going to bring up the subject of COVID again. COVID ain't over, y'all. I told you it wasn't over. The federal government, the mess around here. Y'all's president that messed around here and brought back the federal mandates and oh man, and the courts ruled. Oh man, it's back on, and Fauci's back on TV. I told y'all this first round of COVID, that was just a test of our minds to see if we would obey. And so next week we're gonna talk about that some more with Anita Rhodes, because she has some information she wants to share. So make sure y'all check in next week. Keith, say one last word, then I'm gonna sign out. Say goodbye, something.
God bless you all. God
Thank
bless
you, Keith.
you all. Learn to hear the voice of the Lord. Don't harden your heart. Listen to God. He'll
prophesy. Prophesy, my brother.
Train.
All right, y'all. This was Ted
on
your power weapon on Urban Smart Network.com. See y'all next Monday night at 7 o'clock p.m., 10 o'clock p.m. on the east side, 7 o'clock p.m. on the west side. Good night, y'all.